How do you handle opposition? How do you handle when you face resistance? I mean, real resistance because you're doing what God has called you to do. Do you find that it fuels your faith to keep on going, or do you cower away and begin to doubt? Or do you allow fear to consume you? Do you begin to become fearful and doubt that you're doing what God has called you to do when before you started you just knew with certainty, but once the opposition came your way, you allow doubt to crop up? Well, I think about the Apostle Paul in the book of Philippians, and this is just very powerful to me because Paul wrote this letter to the church when he was on house arrest, and he was in prison because he was declaring the good news, not because he murdered somebody, not because he took another man's wife, not because he stole, not because he was greedy. It was because he was preaching the good news, the very thing that God had apprehended him to do. But I find it so encouraging because Paul, even though he was imprisoned, he was still declaring the good news. And as you read through Philippians 1, he's telling the church, listen, I am excited about this because of this resistance that I faced, because of me being in prison. It's given me even more opportunity to share the good news. He's sharing, with others. He's able to write this letter to encourage them. And then he says, because I am being resisted, he didn't use these exact terms, but this is the essence of it. Because he's being resisted and because he's been arrested, he said his arrest fueled the faith of other believers. It gave them even more confidence to go forth and to declare the good news. And then he goes on to say, I know that there are others who are not preaching from pure motives. They're just preaching with ill intent. They want my chains to become even more intense, so they're preaching about Jesus. So he says, even though I know their motives are not pure and they just want to see me go under, he says, I am rejoicing because the good news is being preached nevertheless. And I'm like, man, this is deep. Some of us, we get resisted and we begin again to second guess whether or not we're called to do something by God, whether God really called us. As soon the first sign of resistance that we see, we want to tuck tail and run. But Paul is like, this is exciting. The resistance that we face should serve as confirmation that we're really doing the will of God. And here's the thing, when you stand firm and flat-footed and declare to the enemy that he won't scare you and he can bring all his resistance, but you're going to continue to forge ahead, confidence begin to rise up in you. And great things can be accomplished. And because of your confidence, because of your boldness, and because of you pressing forward in the face of the resistance, in the face of adversities, others who may be weak in their faith or who may be struggling will see you, and they in turn become just so encouraged because of your faith that's being displayed. Because it takes a great work of faith, quite honestly, when you're being resisted for doing the good work of God, to continue on anyway. So I am on today as I just really have been thinking about this passage to just encourage you. What has God called you to do? What kind of resistance are you facing? Begin to praise the Lord and continue to move forward, and don't allow the enemy to cause you to second guess. Don't let the resistance deter you. Instead, use the resistance as confirmation that you are truly doing the will of God, and use that to set you on fire even the more. All right, let's go out and do the will of God. You be blessed.